I'm reading this morning from the epistle, first letter of Peter, chapter 2, verses 1 through 10. Rid yourself, therefore, of all malice and all guile, insincerity, envy, and all slander. Like newborn infants, long for the pure spiritual milk, so that by it you may grow into salvation, if indeed you have tasted that the Lord is good. Come to him, a living stone, though rejected by mortals, yet chosen and precious in God's sight. And like living stones, let yourself be built into a spiritual house, to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifice acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. For it stands in the Scriptures, see, I am laying in Zion a stone, a cornerstone chosen and precious, and whoever believes in him will not be put to shame. To you then who believe, he is precious, but for those who do not believe, the stone that the builders rejected has become the very head of the corner, and a stone that makes them stumble, and a rock that makes them fall. They stumble because they disobeyed the Lord, as they were destined to do. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's only people, in order that you may proclaim the mighty acts of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Let's go back to the original, the top right.
Okay.
Oh, we can check. Well, since my children have left the nest, and after last Saturday, the last one left the nest, graduated from Butler University, so we've been able to manipulate our way through raising 6 children and getting them college educations. But one of the things that they have done is a lot of traveling. A lot of traveling. As I mentioned before, my oldest son and his wife actually live in County Waterford, Ireland. And most of the other kids have been to Europe to visit, and when they go, they just don't go to Ireland because once you get to Europe, it's pretty inexpensive to travel. So they jump on public transportation, trains, go underneath the English Channel or wherever, and see a lot of the world. One of the things that they always send back in emails to us or bring back are a lot of photos, of course, right? And one of the things that's amazing about Europe is all the ancient structures, the churches, the cathedrals, and the monuments. They're everywhere. They're marvelous to see. I mean, these structures have been around for, some of them, hundreds, maybe more than 1,000 years. They're old structures, but they're beautiful. Well, maybe you have been to Europe and you've seen some of those, and maybe you haven't. But if you haven't, maybe you've been to Washington, D.C. Anybody been to Washington, D.C.? If you've been to Washington, D.C., you've seen some pretty magnificent monuments, at least there. But we did a vacation there a few years back, and if you go down through the National Mall, it's just lined with monuments, and they're fantastic to see. If you've not made it to Washington, D.C. to see all the national treasures, you really, before you leave this world, need to plan a trip and go out for a couple of days to D.C. and do that. Try to find somebody to be your partner and take you out. And if you haven't lived there, at least you probably lived in a house at some point in your life, right? No one lives in a tent here, correct? Everybody at least lives in some kind of a house here. Well, if you've done that, you also have seen structures just around our city, because kind of wherever you go, you see churches and some cathedrals, and something that I take for granted is all the monuments downtown Indianapolis. And because I've lived in Indiana most of my life, I don't think anything about the War Memorial. But when I'm down there for events, I'm always seeing people from other states and other countries taking pictures like crazy because it's a big deal to them. We just kind of take it for granted. You might want to spend some time looking at that. Kind of the reason I'm sharing this with you is because to build anything, whether it's the War Memorial, your home you live in, your apartment complex, the statues and memorials in Washington, D.C., or these Gothic structures in Europe, you have to have a strong foundation. Otherwise, they wouldn't last very long. I've been seeing a commercial lately on television about some company that comes in and takes care of foundations, that your foundation may be caving in. Well, I can tell you right now, if you don't fix the foundations caving in, pretty soon your house gets sucked up. It doesn't stay there. You have to have a strong foundation. Today is the 5th week of Easter. And I think it's important for us as Christians to celebrate this risen Christ that we were really excited about 5 weeks ago. And today's scripture, I think, helps us think about the spiritual foundations that we as Christians need to set for ourselves. It helps us to remember whose we are, and why we even exist as church and as individuals in this connection with Jesus. So I thought what would be really fun, because through Lent and Easter always seems really heavy to me. And during Lent, we're giving things up and talking about crucifixion and pain. And then kind of even getting into Easter, you start talking about a lot of things that are kind of heavy in the weeks of Easter. So I thought it might be fun today to take a very intentional look at the foundations of this particular church, Olive Branch Christian Church. Now, I'm not talking about the physical foundation, although this building has been around here, I think part of it since 1926, part of it since 1934. And while it's an old building, it's actually pretty solid. I mean, we got stuff we can do, yeah. But as far as like the building's going to fall over, I don't think so. I think it's got a solid foundation. What we have to figure out, and sometimes we miss sight of, do we have a solid foundation spiritually? Are we doing God's work? Because God's work's not about a building. That foundation is about being strong Christians. And I think sometimes as church, we completely become oblivious to that and kind of think, hey, I'm just coming here on Sunday because this is where my family's always went here, this is where I've always went here, this is where I was married, this is where I was baptized. And we just kind of sat here and listen to Brooks ramble on, and then we go home or go out to MCL and eat. But the reality of it is, I think there's a really strong foundation here. A really strong foundation. So I want us today to sit back, to relax, smile a little bit, be encouraged, be proud, but not too proud, of the strong foundation that we as church here at Olive Branch Christian Church has laid for itself. Listen, I'm going to have to get different mics. I'm going to have to be turning around a lot this morning. We tried this mic earlier. Jenny, can you hear me okay? Good. I can't hear myself, Adam, so I can't tell. Well, we're going to have a lot of slides here. So, in fact, probably instead of watching me, why don't you turn the camera on the slides for folks at home?
Okay.
Like I said, just kind of relax, enjoy these things, but think about the foundation that we have here. You know, this one's entitled Practicing Hospitality. Anybody recognize the sign where it's located?
Mm-hmm. It's
Downstairs, down in the fellowship hall, where you offer hospitality to people coming in. And we really do that. We have fellowship meals, we have other types of meals, we'll see some photos of some of those things, but we offer hospitality here a lot better than a lot of folks. I've pastored churches or been in intimate churches where when people left who were visitors would come to me later and say, well, that church wasn't very friendly at all. You know, one or two people came and said something to me. That's not true here. When Nick visited us, who's going to be one of our student ministers soon, he visited a few Sundays back, actually when I was not here, but he visited, he said, like everybody in the congregation came to talk to him. I said, that sounds like Olive Branch. I'm sure they did. I'm sure everybody here did go and talk to him. Because we offer hospitality to people. We do a lot of things too that are liturgical. And those are good things, because part of being church, as an organized church, an institutional church, is being able to do funerals and weddings, baptisms and sacraments. And we do all those things. And we do them pretty freely. Church has changed a lot. I was speaking with a student the other day, and I said, probably now only 1 or 2 weddings out of every 10 actually happen in a church. The 2 weddings I have scheduled right now, neither one of them are going to be in a church. One of them is going to be in Plainfield, the other is going to be down in Nashville, Indiana. That's more the norm, unfortunately. But the same is true of funerals. Very few funerals happen in churches anymore. Most of them happen in the funeral home or at the gravesite. But nonetheless, even with that, we still offer that. And I put this one up there because it looks like we've got a trick mirror or something, because actually this couple are really super thin, but they kind of look, they could have went broke. It looks like one of those mirrors from the carpet or something. And we do weddings, and we've done several since I've been here. I know Mrs. Hampton's not here today.
She's teaching.
Oh, she's teaching? Okay, well, she's here. She's here in spirit. Joan is our wedding coordinator, and she's busy when we do that. And you can ask her daughter here. It's a lot of work when we get ready to set up for a wedding. Not only do I spend time counseling couples and doing rehearsal of the wedding, they decorate everything, and they have to meet with the families, and if they have a reception downstairs, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But it's an important time. People are celebrating their life together, hopefully for eternity. So it's an important thing churches do. And we do that. We do that well. We also do congregational life. Unfortunately, Mike's not with us. He's at home recuperating, but this picture happens to be, looks like maybe this was like a Valentine's meal to me. No? But it was a meal sometime here in the past that I took a photo of, because we do meals. We do a lot of fellowship meals together. And I know beyond the fellowship meals, we have our Wednesday evening once a month where you guys go out and eat, the Diners Club. And I hear people after church often talking about where are we going to go eat. So I know a certain group of you all go eat together those times too. And as I mentioned to everyone that I talk to, churches like to eat. Which is one of the reasons we have such a strong food ministry. It's one of the things I always try to do when I go to a congregation is figure out where their strengths are. It was pretty easy here, because everybody here likes to eat, and a whole bunch of them like to cook. So that seemed to make sense for us to center ourselves around those things. Those are important because that allows us to build relationships with one another. You know, we're sitting here in church and we pass the peace and we say hi to one another for 2 seconds. That's great. But it's not like sitting at somebody's table listening to stories about their children, their grandchildren, about when they were in the Second World War, about what happened in their job today, about their opinion about whatever it might be. That's when we build relations. So these things are important. They build our foundation of who we are as people. Now, while it's been a couple of years since we've done this, we still have music, but we've done drama, right? Jenny's led the drama for a lot of years here, and it's always a neat thing. We always enjoy doing it. I just noticed Santa Claus over in the corner. This must be,
That's
we don't have any children here, do we? That must be Roland Chastain. But we do those things. And during Advent, I believe, we did some mini drama, even up here from the pulpit. So we still do that. We do music to praise God. We do drama to praise God. We're not doing it to entertain ourselves. We're not doing it to pat ourselves on the back. Look how great I am at playing the organ. Look how great of a singer I am. We're doing it because we love God and we want God to hear it. And so we do that, and we've done it well. Thank you, Jenny, for all the years that you spent doing this. Looking like we've got enough kids, maybe we'll be able to rehash that this year. That'd be great. We've got plenty of neighborhood activities. One of the things that when you talk to seminary leaders and church leaders across the United States, they'll tell you is one thing that's happened with churches. Churches used to be set neighborhoods. That's why if you look around, there's a lot of different churches, because they were intentionally set up in the United States to be for a specific geographic area. Well, especially for urban churches, that's kind of changed because not too many people live close to the urban churches that they may attend anymore, so they have to drive in. Which means you have to be very intentional about making connections with the neighborhood, with people who live here. Some of them attend, some of them don't, but you still have to be very intentional about letting them know that we love them, that we're God's folks, and that we want to reach out and love them. And you can do that in a lot of different ways. This is one summer we had a summer neighborhood activity, and you can see a lot of different kids that look a lot of different ways. And that's a good thing to build a foundation to say, we are people that love you regardless. We also need some time for rest. There are times when we just need to take it easy and do some fun things. This is, I think, maybe my first year here, we went on a miniature golf outing, but we've done some things like that. And sometimes we just need to have a breather. We need to say, I'm not going to be on that committee anymore. I'm not going to serve in that position anymore. Or let's just take it easy. Let's go do something fun, because we need to rest some as well. One of the things that's been around Olive Branch Christian Church for a really long time is our food pantry. I think now we're serving probably monthly, so we're doing it twice a month, about 120 families a month, is that about right?
About average.
So we're helping out about 120 families. Multiply that by an average family of 4 or 5. So you're talking about around 500 plus or minus people each month we help through our food pantry. This is one of those areas in Indianapolis where there's a lot of need. Folks have a food insecurity. While they might be working, they might not be working enough to be able to have nourishable food. So it's an important ministry we do. And we build a strong foundation by doing that, helping people, that we're recognized there are people who are hungry, and we can help feed them. And so, people in our congregation work diligently to find funding, to find external places that will furnish us food, like Midwest and Gleaners and other congregations. The Seventh-day Adventists, they're not disciples of Christ. You know, what link do they have to Christian Church Disciples of Christ? Absolutely none, let me assure you. But yet, we're going to get $1,000 worth of food because we have been proactive and said, this is a foundation of who we are, providing food for those in need. And we're going to do what we can to make that happen. Part of that is searching for partners all the time. Our church has a lot of ministries you may or may not be involved in, but here's a secret for you in case you don't know it already. George and I drink an awful lot of coffee with people because we spend a lot of our time out hustling folks to buy into the dreams and hopes we have here, to say, you know, we don't ask people for money, but we tell them about the ministries we're doing, and as we share that story, oftentimes people say, let me help. And so it's a good thing I drink decaffeinated coffee, otherwise I'd be bouncing off the walls because I spend a lot of time having to drink coffee with folks. We also literally build foundations. We literally build foundations. In the years that I've been here with you, we've worked with Habitat for Humanity and Fuller Center for Housing. I think this specific day, I think these 3 fine ladies were actually providing food for volunteers at this work site. You remember, Mary? I think that's what was going on here. But they were building a home for someone who did not have a home, and our ladies were providing a meal. We also, as I mentioned, on Thanksgiving Day and the day before Easter, and sometimes, other times, we've tried Wednesday night meals. We've tried some other meals. We do the Halloween bash. We give hot dogs a little bit less. But we feed up to 1,500 people on Thanksgiving, plus or minus. That's a lot of folks to get food, a hot meal on Thanksgiving Day. And we have volunteers, plus our own people here. Again, building a strong foundation, saying, we're about God and what God wants us to do. We're not about ourselves. We're about what God is asking us to do. I see this because I thought everybody get a kick out of seeing it. Oh, thank you. And did I mention the churches like to eat? This is a photo of our Christmas giveaway. You're all aware of the fact that a week or two before Christmas, we help families in our neighborhood give gifts to their children. I think normally we average 200 children, someplace in that neck of the woods.
Last year was actually 96, I believe, but the year before was closer to 200, yes.
So it varies from year to year, but you know, each year we help. There's families who can't afford to buy Christmas for their children. And as I always say from the pulpit, it's not about us giving that child a toy. It's about us giving that child hope and letting that child know that somebody cares about them. The fact that they get a toy is really a sidebar, but it's something significant that we do, and a lot of people come to be gifted so their children can wake up on Christmas morning and have something there to let them know they're cared for. And we've even had the Marines come and help us, not because we were in trouble. You know, we didn't need guards, but they were kind enough to come, and that was a fun Christmas action. Those guys, for you who have not helped with that before, these Marines go around to different sites and help with Christmas giveaways. What they told me, we were the most organized of any place they've ever been for a Christmas giveaway, which is surprising to me.
Not to me.
But that's a good. We also, I don't know if you can remember or not, my first year here, I just come fairly recently from Fort Walton Beach, with the home of Eglin Air Force Base, and one of my friends, Rachel, had been stationed overseas. And one of her responsibilities, because she's in the medical corps, was to work with a girls' orphanage. And she contacted me and said, there's this girls' orphanage that has like 200 children in it. They don't have any underclothes, They don't have toothbrushes or toothpaste. And now if you remember back that far, I know our mind's starting to slip some, but we did raising funds through that and actually sent boxes and boxes and boxes to her and the other troops that were stationed there. And on Christmas time, they provided for their children. I get to do something in the name of our church. I get to award scholarships. I did one at Hamlin Southeastern last week, and we did one at Fishers this week. But we also give scholarships to students at Christian Theological Seminary. We have a scholarship fund that's set up that can't be touched for anything except that. And each year we award a student at Christian Theological Seminary a financial award to help them with their education to become a minister. An important ministry. We're undergirding, we're building that foundation for something. I'm also a member of the Butler University Parent Council, and the reason I got that up there because, unbeknownst to you perhaps, I spend some time on Butler campus. That means I get a chance to talk to young adults about God and about Olive Branch Christian Church, which is a pretty neat thing. And in fact, over the alternative spring break time, when college kids were at the beach, we had 4 different groups coming to Indianapolis. Some of them worked here, but through my efforts to work in the inner city to do good work for God and for people in the community. From Southern Methodist University, Missouri State, Alma College, and from Southern Illinois. So it's important to have these young people connected. Because as you can see, look across here, not a lot of them in church. So for us to be able to connect with them in some manner, it's really important for us to do. Crop walk. Well, last year was my first year of being a coordinator. I'm not sure how I got sucked into that, but somehow I did. But we've always had a big crowd at the crop walk. Is there another slide of crop walk?
I have no idea.
But we walk and start at the Christian Theological Seminary grounds and walk through Butler University and into the Butler Tarpon area to raise funds for Church World Service, which aids in global and local hunger. Some of the agencies here in Indianapolis gets money and food, but also it goes globally, so we're helping people all around the world with food. Normally, we raise about $100,000 in that 5-kilometer walk each fall in October. I believe this year is October 19th. Now, here's another picture. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe, I don't know if our regional minister up there with TCU shirt on was with us that day and just came over or not, but here's another group. We usually have, our goal is kind of try to have 20 people walk, and we usually get pretty close to that amount of folks walking for that. Another thing we do, if you don't save your pop tabs, please start doing it. If you drink Diet Coke like my wife does, she can take care of the house by herself with the Diet Coke she drinks every week. But any type of pop tabs you have, save those. We have a container out here, and as that gets full, Elizabeth dumps it over the bags, and you go into my office, you'll see all kinds of things gathered there. One of the things you see gathered are big bags of pop tabs. And each year, for the Ronald McDonald House, who we have a strong ministry with anyhow, on the circle, they have the Pop Top Drop. And people from all over Indiana bring their pop tabs in. Last year, on that day, we were donated 10 million pop tabs. It's a lot of pop tabs, I can tell you. It was a fun day doing it. Go ahead and switch, because I think I got some other pop tabs here. This is a few years back, but that's what, one of those boxes holds 1 million pop tabs. That's what 1 million pop tabs look like, if you want to know. It's a fun time, and you're certainly always welcome to come down and help. Last 2 or 3 years, the North Central High School football teams helped to come unload that stuff, because some people bring in huge barrels that are really heavy, and I'm thankful for them, because otherwise that means I'd be lifting them. So it's a fun time. They have a little band set up around McDonald's there. Sometimes the Colts cheerleaders show up. The mayor showed up last year. You can really kind of, some of Angela Bachman showed up one year. You can kind of not tell who's going to show up to do a piece, but it's always a fun time, and it's significant, because from those pop tabs alone, that raises about $80,000 each year for the Ronald McDonald House that helps pay for those rooms that people stay in. So it's significant. Again, a significant ministry doing a foundation. Enough said. Yeah. Who's the real client? And speaking of our ministry at the Ronald McDonald House, we do some really important stuff. If you haven't been with us to a Ronald McDonald House meal, you really need to talk to George and work your way into coming to visit. Not only do we prepare a comfort meal, and what I specifically share with my folks here is that there needs to be a comfort meal like you're going to grandma's house. So it feels comfortable. These are mostly young people who have children who are very, very sick, oftentimes dying. And they'll tell us, the folks who have been there, we've had people tell us, well, it's like eating at grandma's house, because we'll fix mashed potatoes and green beans and chicken and noodles and pork roast. It's like going to grandma's house to eat. It's not like throwing a pizza in the oven. And in fact, a lot of groups go there, and that's what they do, is just kind of have pizza all the time. These folks are really stressed out. This is very difficult for them. We have conversations. Not only do we feed them, we have conversations with these people. We hold their babies, and oftentimes these children never leave the hospital. They know that they're never going to have a life of their own stuff. So it's significant. I've seen some of our folks have tears in their eyes after we've left in the evenings and stuff. It's an important thing we do. That's not the only thing we do for the Ronald McDonald House, though. We, in the fall, help them. They do a fundraiser called the Wild Wild Midwest Clay Shoot. That's where they throw clay pigeons in the air, and people shoot them up in Kokomo. We do their barbecue. We feed all the people who come there to that organization to shoot that day up in Kokomo. It's always fun. Every year we've done it so far, it's been nice and shiny and sunny, right? And we do barbecue and baked beans and whatever, drinks and stuff, and serve it for them and prepare part of it. But it's a great day. Again, it's a fundraiser for them to help pay the expenses that are incurred at the Ronald McDonald House. Then also, beyond that, we're not done yet. Every year they have an open house to show appreciation to the people who have donated to them, and also doing marketing to try to get other people to donate to their house. The last 2 years, this will be our third year, last 3 years, we have done their Winter Wonderland open house meal for them. So they've had it, this year's going to be a little bit different, but the last couple of years it's been a sit-down, pretty fancy meal, and you good folks have provided that meal for them, prepared it, and served it to them, and they're very appreciative of it. So a lot of things that we do. And if you notice, the first 2 weeks of each month, when we pass around our loose change, that goes to help pay for keys for the room. So another thing, we're building a foundation saying we're part of this community, we're part of the foundation that makes things that happen in this community important. One of the things I love about this congregation, and I can't say about every congregation I've ever served. Some congregations I've been to, let me say it this way. When I first graduated from seminary, I had 69 churches across the United States contact me and want me to be their minister. Now, some of them scared me to death because I had a couple of churches say, Brooks, if you don't come, we're going to have to close the doors. Well, I absolutely did not want to go there. That scared me off immediately. But a lot of them said, we're really friendly. Everybody's welcome here. But I went and visited them. That was not true. Not everybody was welcome there. They were welcome there if you looked exactly like them and acted exactly like them. But if you were different, you really weren't welcome there. But at least my experience here at Olive Branch, that's not been true. And this is as wild as I guess I picked because of the tattoos. But when we have folks come and visit us here, or we have folks in the food pantry, or we go to the Ronald McDonald House, or we go serve a meal someplace, I don't see any of my folks saying, well, I'm not going to talk to that person because I don't like the way they look. We're friendly and hospitable to everyone, which is exactly what God and Jesus says we're supposed to do. If you're going to be a Christian, it's what you have to do. You have to love everybody. You don't have to agree with everybody, but you have to love everybody. And I love that about our church. We also have been active. We've had folks go to our regional assemblies and our national assemblies. Pat Rowland used to the Chastains used to go to every one of them. And since their health was affected here the last couple of years, they've not been able to, but you pretty much bet bottom dollar where he showed up, Pat and Rowland would be. In fact, they were here in Nashville, Tennessee, at our General Assembly that we had there, hooping it up. That's an important part because we are part of a bigger church. Our church is a Christian church, Disciples of Christ, and we're part of that body. While we're an individual congregation, we're still part of a bigger body, and it's important for us to know that our foundation is built on that. I believe this is over I love these street names. St. Peter, St. Paul, and Churchman. Now, the Fuller Center, a few years back, during our Lent, we always collect money during the Lent services with the UCC churches. And one year, we poured that money toward the Fuller Center because they were doing these builds. They were rehabbing 15 homes and building 3 new homes on St. Paul, St. Peter, and Churchman. How appropriate for churches to be connected with St. Paul, St. Peter, and Churchman. And we got Tim was out there, I know, and Mary was there. And a lot of you folks were out there helping and stuff. Go ahead and turn us. I think we maybe have a picture. This is some more young people building homes with Habitat. We can go ahead. And this is last year, I believe. In fact, we were framing a home. We framed this in. Speedway? Speedway Christian Church. The year before that, we framed one down in Beach Grove Christian. And so a lot of these homes, if they ever get torn down or the walls get remodeled, on that plywood, some places written Olive Branch Christian Church, Disciples of Christ. Maybe we've got a picture of one of those. This is the build at Beach Grove. Now, here we go. Blessings on your home from Disciples Urban Ministry, Olive Branch, and Centenary Christian Churches, Disciples of Christ. So I usually write that on the walls. I won't be writing Centenary anymore. But if I'm there on those builds, I do that. So if anybody ever has to replace a wall, take that off sometime, 50 years from now, and it's going to say, Olive Branch Christian Church helped build this house for me, which I just think is pretty cool.
There you go.
These were volunteers that I think came from Virginia, up here when we did the Fuller bills. And these 2 older guys inside, they're hilarious. They were putting windows in. They're pretty funny guys. Here's the Fuller build after having a meeting, getting ready to go to work. And I think on the porch here, I think our representative on the porch is Mary Massey. Can you see yourself, Mary?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're in a white top.
Yeah, white top.
This is the photo that I was hoping to get to. The little lady right in front of Mary is whose home it was, and we rehabbed that home. I was telling somebody actually yesterday about the bathroom in that house because I'm not sure it was really a bathroom, but it was there. But we had to put in new flooring, had to do remodeling the toilet, put in some new windows, new steps out front, remodel the porch. I can't remember what all we did.
New carpet.
Yeah, new carpet. It was pretty much a disaster. If you walk in there, you're like, whoa, how's somebody living like this? But we rehabbed that home, and it was a great experience, and she was very, very appreciative. We also, another thing that we do, as I mentioned, the 4 college groups come in. Well, those aren't the only groups that come in. I get called a lot because when we had our National Assembly here in Indianapolis, I was in charge of mission. So because of that, I kind of got tagged as a person in the Indianapolis area, that if anybody's coming to Indianapolis that wants to have urban mission trips, they call me. Which is good, because that means I suck all you guys in on that too. But what we do is we facilitate people to do all kinds of experience. We have people come from rural churches, suburban churches. We've had them come from Country Club Christian Church in Kansas City. We've had them come from Illinois, from Iowa, from New York City, coming here to learn about what it's like to do ministry inside an urban setting. And a lot of times they're young people. I think this is at Second Helpings, but we've had them at the Julian Center. We've had them at Second Helpings. We've had them on Fuller House. We had a big group go over to the School 31 and help them prep the garden here just a couple of weeks ago. We've had them at Wheeler Mission, Horizon House, blah, 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 blah. So it's a great thing. It's a good foundation because people all across the United States, believe it or not, know Olive Branch Christian Church because that's the church. If we're going to do it, we're going to take a trip to Indianapolis, we've got to get a hold of Olive Branch Christian Church because they're the ones that fix us up with mission. I think this is during our last regional assembly, and I had a bunch of youth out, and we were rehabbing home. We couldn't get a rehab dog, so we only had it for like a day. But you can see the kids were having a good time. And part of their work was cleaning up neighborhoods, because Toby can tell you about this. In neighborhoods where there's a thing the National Police Association came up with a thing called the broken window syndrome. If you're in a neighborhood where there's broken windows, houses boarded up, or tall grass in the alleys, the crime rate soars. Because people look at that and say, nobody cares. Nobody's paying attention, nobody cares. So if you go into those areas, like these kids are, clean up alleyways, clean up streets, criminal kind of look at it and go, well, somebody must be paying attention, I better move out here. So it's really silly work, it's really significant and important. This is a home during the Fuller Center we built too, or rehabbed also. And you see how nasty it looked from the outside, but it's done, it did not look like. Here's a home during the original assembly we were getting ready to demo the inside of it. That's why they had the mask. I think in a second you'll see. That's old Vlad from inside the building we were tearing down. This was kind of scary. They're turning a bunch of high schoolers and college kids loose with sledgehammers, tearing down walls, but that's what we did, and they did a good job. Here again, two older gentlemen rehabbing windows. Here are some college students from Butler University, in fact. These become walls to houses, and they were relocating the walls. And these are some Butler girls getting ready to do some work for us in the neighborhood. Some of you have been up, not all of you, some of you have been up to the Hamilton County Fair, because each year, when my mother was still alive, we started a corn dog stand at the Hamilton County Fair. But all the profits from it, we have to pay for the corn dogs, of course, and drinks. But everything else goes to money we use for missions, whatever that might be. Some of it's been for food here at the food pantry, other items we bought for the church, and other things. Carolyn Reed is one of our regional ministers here on the right, and my sister, some of you know her, my brother and his wife, but you're always welcome to come up and work with us during Hamilton County Fair and sell corn dogs. George has got wrapping breadsticks down to a fine art. But it's a fun time. You get to visit with a lot of people and make some significant money to help us with missions every year. So, let me put this down. I wanted to share all those photos with you, not to bore you to death, but to let you know that our congregation, while you look out across here and say, boy, there's not very many people here today, this church is not doing very much, that's not true. This church does more than a lot of big churches do. I guarantee you. We have a strong foundation that's been built from a long time ago. Some of these folks here who have whiter hair than I have been around this church for a long time and have built strong foundations for what goes on now. And the young people have picked up on that. The younger people here pick up on that too. We have built a foundation and maintain that foundation. And as I see it, it's because we love God. And this is what Jesus has told us to do. Jesus has said, you have to have that strong spiritual foundation. And that spiritual foundation is not about a building. That spiritual foundation is about doing the things that I ask you to do for others. And this church has done that way. And I thought we need a little pat on the back this Sunday. So I want to share that with you. This is the Word of God for the people of God.
Praise be to God.